actually come to a point where after the communication skills from the point of view of language, grammar, what we have covered so far, we'll venture to something exciting, visual communication. Let us just start off with the outline. So, the purpose of today's talk would be basically on various usage of what visuals should be used and how can you, what happened? I'm sorry, actually some problem in reading this. I'm sorry, I didn't get enough time to spend on this. What's basically wrong with this? Some point, fonts are too bad. Anything else? Fonts are not very clear. Okay, anything else? What is the scariest part of this slide right now? Huh? Colors, okay. Huh? Sentences are too big. Okay, you can't even see what is the third sentence, okay. But I am not able to get one very important feedback out of it. What is the most scariest part of this slide right now? Colors, yeah, we covered colors already. Doesn't it, font, yeah, okay, font style. Doesn't it, font type, the script type is not suitable for this, right? Doesn't it scare you that this is the second slide of 137 slides more to come in the similar way? I got scared, okay. Just kidding, actually, starting a fresh way. We are here to talk about visual communication skill, and what you saw is actually a parody of what could be a well communicated slide. So, we will talk about visual communication, and that's why I've kept visual in a separate color and font. Thanks to Kentaro Toyama, who is from Microsoft Research, and I happened to attend his presentation during a summer school which I attended in Bangalore. And this presentation is based on his talk there plus some additional references from other places. Okay, so any talk for that matter, whatever you give, has a goal. You start off with it, whether it be a seminar, it can be your APS, or it can be your MTech presentation, or even a conference paper. So what you want is that the audience should not only understand what you are telling, but they should also remember and take away something, what message you are trying to convey. So that message is so very important to be conveyed in a format that they remember and take it back. So whenever I just now an example of Kentaro Toyama, the presentation was so good that I carried it with me all the time, and that's how I use it whenever I get a chance. So whenever we talk about presentation, the first thing people relate to is that it has to be impressive. Now, in the process what I'm going to explain to you, impress comes actually at the last point of the process, because impression will come only when you have a good execution at the back. And how will you execute well? Only if you plan well. So, analogy I'm drawing, being a filmmaker myself, you have to excuse me because I'll draw analogies mostly from the background of this. On the left you see a sketch and a drawing by Satyajit Ray for the characters of the film, and the kind of detailing he has put in terms of how the look and feel of the character would be is not only from the drawing, but he has also made notes about what is it. When it came to execution stage, the shooting of the film, he went ahead and just did the fine touches of checking the makeup right and all that, and that's how you get classics like Ghare Baire, and that's how we have a director like Satyajit Ray who is acclaimed worldwide for his direction. The point I am saying is that for every presentation, if there is a proper plan and a well executed plan, will result in an impressive presentation. So, another analogy, Um, think of any film you have seen. I'm not talking about films like maybe the violent ones, but a typical entertaining family film will mostly have this as outline. Anybody disagrees with this outline? You take any rom-coms, whatever you feel like, and you enjoyed that. But if you go to the core of that thought, what actually they wanted to do was this. They wanted to set up a particular story in whatever it happens in Punjab or it happens in Delhi or whatever. But they start with a conflict. They have a false climax where typically there is an interval. And then you have another rising action, another false climax, because then they have to show the last frame of they lived happily together. So they just come to that point and then they say that it happened. If I just map that with your headings of the presentation, typically it will fall into place. So it will start with the introduction, it will have a problem or observation. You just start the motivation behind why are you giving this presentation, you establish what is the problem. You will cite some related work, like we are going to do the literature review now, and I think first is the deadline, right? You will propose a solution. You'll say that this is how it should work if this is the problem, and you will also show how that solution has worked, showing your result or the proof or whatever you have done in your research, what you're presenting as. And whatever is left over, you'll say this is future work, and we'll take it up in the next presentation or in the next paper or whatever. So in short, what happens is typical outline will resemble a good story actually, and that's how you will be able to captivate people by what you wanted to say. Now, if you have that as your target, that you have to come to a point where you need to get a story. And why is story important? Story is important because everybody loves stories. Whatever age group, whatever format, whatever the audience, everybody will love that story. And if you have to have that particular thing, then this is the process we are going to follow. And for the next 2 lectures, so including this, it will be 3 lectures, we are going to devote for each of this step in the process, how we will go from planning stage to execution stage, and finally on the impress stage, that how you can actually modify the thing. So when you talk about presentation, unfortunately I start with something called planning, which looks very boring, but let me assure you, without proper planning you can't execute your presentation, and without proper execution you can't impress people. So whatever topics you are expecting in visual communication, presentation skills will actually come in the last topic of impress. Okay, so we'll start with something called plan. We'll go ahead with something called execute. While executing, it is just converting your plan in the form of a presentation. And right now, let me remind you, this is not about font, this is not about colors, this is not about effects, this is not about transitions, all that. This is just about putting your presentation in a proper order, in a structure. Then you have impress, where you talk about color schemes, typography, animated visuals, effects for transitions or something, if they are required, and we'll also discuss why they are required in particular cases and why they are actually not required in most of the cases. Appeal is something slightly abstract term, but it is more to do with your perception of whatever is being presented. For example, the first slide which I put up, most of the people started giggling and looking around. Is he gone crazy? Like, why this slide and all that? So that's actually the appeal which was generated because of that sort of a slide, which was not appealing at all. And I have put practice as the bottom line of everything, because however good you do all this stuff which is written on the top, if you don't practice your presentation, then it is kind of guaranteed to bomb, because you just can't be maybe spontaneous enough to execute all the detailing what you have been trying to put into your presentation. So I remember Professor Phatak narrating me his experiences when he started teaching. So the first thing he bought was a small recorder, audio recorder. Those times were the cassette players, and every time he had a lecture, in the next day is to put a cassette in that and really completely read out or talk about that lecture in a loud voice in front of a mirror and record it and hear it a couple of times before he actually gave the presentation. Now that's what practice is, and if you don't do that, you are bound to get beaten up in the lecture actually. So we are going to focus on this today, and I'll share with you some of the techniques what can be used for planning. Let me put a disclaimer that these are not the only techniques, but these are some of the techniques which we are going to practice today and see how we can plan our presentations well. Right? So one of the techniques what I'm going to talk about is called brainstorm. So how many people have actually participated in such things? Like there are group discussions I know about, but have you actually done a formal brainstorming session with about a topic sometime?
Okay, so it was a team meeting kind of thing where you wanted views of everybody to be consolidated. Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And we have to analyze what comes out, because brainstorming, like you agree, we throw a lot of data, a lot of points which may or may not be related directly to what we want to do. So we have to put them into proper buckets in order to make it usable. So that will be the analyze stage, and finally organize them in some format so that will be usable for our presentation part. For that I use mind map, and since I thought this is a session for the Department of CSE, I thought of using mind map moreover, because there are so many interesting tools available to actually create a mind map online and share it with people. So it's a very exciting tool, so we'll go into the depth of that today. But let us first start with an activity. So I am told that the groups are already formed. Every row becomes a group. So if you are a group, give a name to your group was the initial idea, but no need to spend time on that. You can just simply write the roll numbers of the people present today, and not for your absentee members who will just take the advantage of being in your group. Okay, so people who are present today will get a sheet each, which will have one topic written on that. The topic will be, it's a very generic topic, nothing political about it, and nothing official about it. It's just a topic. It's just for our assignment purpose that we are taking this topic. What you have to do is follow the brainstorming activity after you get the paper. So you got the white paper with a name on it, with a title on it. Right? You are getting it.
We are distributing a couple of rough sheets like these, the 2-page answer sheets on each row. These are for rough work for you to write down. The actual submission will be on the white page on which the topic is written. That is the topic of your discussion. The first thing that the group will do is, when the page is distributed, 1 page per row, that is your topic, you will write on the reverse side of that page the roll numbers of the people who are present in that group. Those who are present from the group. The group may be 3 people, 6 people, 5 people.
Okay, so everybody got one. This is how you have to start off. Just start with, so discuss amongst your team members on the in the group, and just start with whatever comes to your mind. It can be words, concepts, ideas about that topic. Keep writing them on the rough papers right now.
Yeah, the rough papers have been given just a couple of So whatever is saying, first write down on those rough papers. And the final mind map that you arrive at should be drawn on that white sheet. But before that, please ensure that you write the roll numbers of all the people in your group on the reverse of that white paper. That is the paper that is to be submitted. Only those roll numbers which are present, please.
Yeah. So just go ahead and whatever comes to your mind, and keep writing on the rough paper right now. We are not writing on the white paper which has the topic name, right? Just go ahead and write. I'll come towards each group and try to ask you whatever you had thought of.
Those people who are drawing mind map are those amongst you who have some prior idea of the mind map. But when you do that, you are actually working alone. The objective of this phase is brainstorming. You are not supposed to do anything alone. Anything. Even if you have an idea and you want to write it down, you must share it with your neighbor. At least tell the neighbor what that idea is and then write it down. The whole idea of brainstorming is making each other aware of one's idea. And it's a vital aspect. Since most of us work alone, we don't recognize how important it is. So use, for example, the last row, I can clearly see that the corner people cannot even see each other, forget they can hear it. So you should use this thick pair share. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor about your ideas, let your neighbor talk to you, then jot down some points, and then collab across with the group.
You should talk to each other and yeah, just keep going. What's your topic? Software piracy. Okay, I saw that couple of groups within the row have been discussing. Just pass on the papers from one end of the row to the other end of the row and ask them to cut and add or edit whatever you have written. So basically try to ask questions about every sentence written there. Why you have written this, what is the motivation behind writing this, that type of thing. And if you agree, keep it, otherwise just start deleting it. This was actually, I added this based on the last lectures by Professor Phatak, in which he said that for your topic, go ahead and discuss with your team members over dinner or whatever, which I am sure not many people did that, or if they have done that, that's wonderful. But this is just a glimpse of how things can emerge out of it, right?
So once you have the populated papers with you about the ideas, whatever is generated,
in order to categorize them and analyze them, we need a structure. And the reason I am saying is that the structure has to be based on the requirement of the audience. Whom are you going to talk about this thing, right? So if you know that life at IITB as a topic, who has that topic, life at IITB? Which group had this topic? Okay, 1, 2. Okay. So if your target audience was a college in VJTI, suppose you have to go and give a talk at VJTI, what will be the orientation of this? Vice is if you have to give this to the freshies of IIT Bombay, you will change the presentation, right? Because of the audience being changed. Will you change or it will be the same? It will be the same or change? Okay. So the structure is important, and it depends a lot on who is going to read it or listen to you or look at it. So suppose I tell you that these are the alphabets to be remembered by the end of this lecture. It's very difficult for you, obviously. Probably some smart people may use a structure of saying, okay, there were 5 A's and 3 I's in that, and that's how we can remember, but even this is difficult. Some more smarter people will create some sentence out of it and spell it out later on, but even these sentences are very difficult. But if my audience is going to be the computer science student, I'll probably rearrange them in this, which will be very interesting for you to remember all the time. Though you no need to have that arbitrary words on the top or the alphabets on the top. So if my audience is this, I would rather structure it in a format that they will understand the whole thing. Similarly, a mountain comic or an account mini ohm or iconic mom nut is very difficult to remember as opposed to communication. So that's easier to remember. So the structure is something which has to be considered when you start collecting these ideas and trying to present it. So the first thing you have to think of is audience. So whom are we going to talk about? So for your presentation, it is your group itself. So the rest of the people are your audience. So remember that while you are structuring your things. So now let us just get on to how will you express these brainstorming discussions what you had into a format which is interesting enough for people to understand the presentation even without standing here and presenting it. So one of that method is called mind maps, and you can actually make it using various ways, and people have there are enormous documents available about what is a mind map and how you can do it. I'm not going to spend time on that because most of you can just go out and read it. But why I'm saying is that now when you have this particular idea, okay, let me just, okay, so whatever ideas are generated today for that particular topic, keeping in view that the audience is going to be your own class, start structuring it in a format of a mind map. And the way you have to do it is start with the central idea, whatever is given to you in the center of the paper, and just have various hub and spokes to that. So it's a main hub is that life at IITB or software piracy or whatever the topic is, and just start talking about various aspects. You can use this rough outline of what was the problem statement, if there is a problem statement. Like for example, I asked somebody who had LAN ban, advantages and disadvantages. They said we don't have any advantages of LAN ban anyway, but since you have asked for it, we'll try to figure out if there are any advantages. So you can just go ahead and you just create a mind map using this. Just to show an example that this is a classic slide of guidelines how to create a mind map. Explained in detail text what is it. But a lot of people have shown me and it's already registered that these guidelines presented in this format are much more legible than reading out those 12 points. So a mind map of mind map guidelines is much more readable than the guidelines itself which are written in text. So you can easily see that it starts from the center of what is the topic of this mind map. It's about mind map guidelines, and there are certain first level pointers like what is clarity, what is, how do you start from center, what are the styles to be used, what are the keywords, how can you use the lines. So lines can be labeled by saying that observed by or something like, so you can label the lines. You can use colors to denote different sections of the mind maps and other things. So the task for you is like this. These are some of the mind mapping tools. The first two are free tools which can be downloaded easily. ThinkBuzan is one of the most popular tools on the web. However, it is not free. It is limited usage is free, but the rest of the thing is paid. But the top two tools are free and you can use them. I have been using them. So the assignment is as follows. So brainstorm about the topic within the group, and you can continue whatever you have been doing. But then when you have that, you just create a mind map. You use any one of the free tools which I have already mentioned, and we will post this slides on the Moodle so that you can get the URLs. But just for people, it was XMind and FreeMind are the two tools. You can just write down that name. And then every mind map software will give you an option to export that as a JPEG. So this I am underlining, send me a JPEG or upload a JPEG, because last year when we conducted the similar assignment, most of the people gave me that original mind map file, which was very difficult. I had to install all the softwares on my machine in order to open them. So that's very cumbersome and time consuming. So just export it as a JPEG and send it across, right? The activity will be actually ending on the 2nd of April, because I believe you have bigger deadline prior to that. So you will not be able to spend time on this. That's why it is deliberately kept at 2nd April. Announcement is that on 1st of April, the class is not going to happen here. The class is going to be for the entire IIT students in the convocation hall. Therefore, we are not meeting on 1st of April. We will meet on 3rd of April. So on 3rd of April, we will be able to see mind maps of every group. That's the one of the agenda items for the next thing. So we'll have discussion on mind map, and then from mind map, we'll see how execution of presentation will happen. So how from a mind map or from the brainstorming what you have done, what are the pointers which can create a presentation? So what should you extract from that mind map in order to make a presentation? So that will be the topic for the next session. So I would like to stop here and give you some time for questions if you have any.
Important questions. So first question is, I do not know whether each one of you has the email ID and contact detail, hostel number, room number of a colleague group member. Somebody has written their roll numbers on that sheet, on that white sheet, but nobody knows which are the groups. Even we do not know which are the groups. What we'll do is we'll collect those white pages back,
Scan it.
and not scan it, and we'll put the title and the roll numbers on the Moodle let group list. We'll do that by today anyway, because I don't think you would have drawn any mind map on that page now. But you are expected to draw a mind map on a page and submit it, which you will do using that tool later. But continue this discussion and use some time now, the last 2 minutes before you leave, to decide on a common place for the group of 3, 4, 5, 6 people to meet and spend another 10-15 minutes together. This is a group activity. Preparing the mind map is a group activity. And therefore, the group has to have a coordinator. So my request is that take that white paper where you would have written the roll numbers on the return and put a star against one roll number who will be the coordinator. Only that starred person shall submit the JPEG file, so that there is no confusion. Here is a question: how to represent abstract research topics such as
My seminar topic is very abstract.
what is your seminar topic?
Abstraction of quantities and time from a free text.
Extraction of quantities and
Time.
time information from a free flowing text, so that you don't know what is written and you have to identify whether there is any information pertaining to time, which could be yesterday morning 5 o'clock or which could be in 1973, whatever. And the other one is quantity. So he sold 100 kilograms of rice or whatever. Large statue of what you call AK-47s were found, etc. So all kinds of things. He claims that this is a very abstract topic. I claim that this is a very real life topic.
I'm also presented what is my topic and how to represent my the ideas that we learn as a mind. The ideas are very mathematical.
He believes that if the ideas are very mathematical, because you are obviously going to do you are going to surf the web, right, to get all the information. You'll have large number of documents and you'll have to decide on keywords for those documents, you'll have to rank those pages, you'll do variety of things. And you are not very sure how to present those ideas or how to write a mind map for that. Okay, so one suggestion is that the words that you use and the words that I use themselves could be the initial keyword that you form. But it's very important for you to think more as if you are discussing with someone else. Ideally, you should pair up with some friend of yours. Help that friend to think about his or her topic and get help on your thinking and brainstorming are very essential activities in planning. And we have the opportunity as human beings to always discuss with people, but invariably what happens is, in a preparation towards any assignment, we are used to the dicta that you shall not discuss with anybody else. You are expected to do everything on your own. It is a very stupid rule, because any assessment also must form part of learning. So this is an opportunity where you actually should discuss. Get out of that mindset, discuss with people.
Exactly. Actually, the point what you were talking to us, during that discussion itself, we generated a lot of keywords around this topic.
Correct.
If they were noted down, then immediately you
And
can
then you
think
can
of
explain.
chunking them into various boxes. What are the problems?
Any other questions? Yeah.
So there is something called concept map and I'm using something for that. So what is the difference between mind map and concept map?
Something called
Concept map.
Concept map.
Yeah, okay. So concept map and mind map, what is the difference between the two? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have answer to this, or I will also put my 5 cents into that? Have you heard of this word concept map? Or mind map was more heard word for you?
Or you had heard nothing.
Nothing. Either of the three. Okay, so frankly,
Within concept map and mind map, there is not much of a difference. You can define as such. At the definition level, there might be fundamental difference into both. The concept map actually starts with, it's a very formal methodology for creating whatever flow you wanted to present. On the other side, mind map is slightly having a free flow, and you are free to drag, and you can add many things, and you can have interconnections between the things. But in concepts, typically you can't have two third hierarchy bullets joined to each other or things like that. So that's where you have to have a concept being explained exactly like in a textbook, where you have a flow of things in a very formal way. So that's how people typically associate concept map and mind map. But yeah, they are mostly similar to each other. If you see two examples of both of them, you will probably not be able to figure out what is the concept map and which one is a mind map. That's all. Anything else? So I'll see you on 3rd.